Okay, I think we can get started, everybody. So hello, thank you so much for joining this webinar. We'd like to spend the next hour or so demonstrating how PalmWatch works and showing you how you can use it in your work. And then we want to leave plenty of time at the end for questions. We already had some people submit questions, so we want to leave plenty of time to cover those. So thanks for doing that. Just to note that we have interpretation available for Bahasa, French, and Spanish, and there are instructions in the chat, but just click on the interpretation button at the bottom and select your language, and we should be good to go. And just to note that we're going to be recording this webinar and sharing the video on our website afterwards. So why don't we start with just a quick round of introductions of the panelists. I'm Dustin Rosa, the Research Director at Inclusive Development International, or IDI for short. We're a human rights organization with a focus on corporate accountability, and a big part of what we do is follow the money behind harmful projects, including, of course, oil palm plantations. And we developed PalmWatch in partnership with the Data Science Institute at the University of Chicago. And we have two colleagues from the DSI with us who led the development of PalmWatch. Dylan and Lana, did you want to introduce yourselves?
Sure. Thanks so much, Dustin. Hey, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Dylan Halpern. I work as a software engineer at the University of Chicago's Data Science Institute. This is a group that does a lot of data science and computer science in a variety of topic areas. And human rights and corporate accountability is one of the areas that we engage in a lot. Our work on this is funded by the 11th Hour Foundation. We're very grateful for their support. And our work on this was primarily working with Dustin and working with some of the data sets to understand how can we best understand the impact of palm oil plantations when we don't have complete information about where do all the mills operate and where are their concession or plantation boundaries. So excited to share out a little bit more about this tool and what we've built. And thank you all for being here. Lana, do you want to do a quick intro?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Lana Greer. I am also a software engineer at the Data Science Institute. Very excited to be highlighting the PalmWatch tool today. We've been working on iterations of PalmWatch for about the last 3 years. And there were some efforts even before that. So this represents the culmination of a lot of great data science strategies, geospatial work, and then the dedication of IDI and other partners to really uncover patterns in palm oil use. I'm excited to be here.
Thanks, Lana and Dylan. So I know some of you came to our launch event in March and are at least somewhat familiar with PalmWatch. But if you didn't make it, I just wanted to give you a kind of a quick overview of what it is and just what it does. So PalmWatch is a free-to-use tool that traces palm oil from the ground level, where the fruit is grown, to the consumer brands that use palm oil in their products. And it shows the deforestation impacts of these palm oil supply chains. Now, eventually, with future versions, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, with future versions of the tool, we want to integrate human rights impact data as well. The PalmWatch right now is relying on 3 kind of primary data sources. So the first one is just corporate disclosures from 15 consumer brands like Unilever and Nestle, showing which crushing mills they source their palm oil from. The second data set is what's called the Universal Mill List, which is a standardized set of more than 2,000 global palm oil mills. And the third data set is it's called the Hansen Global Forest Change Data, which shows global tree cover loss going back about 20 years. So what PalmWatch does is it takes all of this data and integrates it and puts it into one platform, and it uses advanced data science techniques to try to make sense of it all and make it usable for research and advocacy. So I thought for this session, it would be helpful to do a couple of demonstrations just to show you how you might use it in your work. And then I'll turn it over to Lana and Dylan to do a little demonstration on a couple of other kind of key features of the tool. So the first demo I want to show you is how IDI typically does palm oil research. And it's really what spurred us to develop PalmWatch in the first place. And that's how to trace palm oil from the ground level, where the impacts are occurring, to big consumer brands like Nestle and Unilever. So generally, when we do this research, we're starting from a particular plantation where human rights violations might have occurred. So for example, a few years ago, we got a request to investigate a plantation called PT Mamwang. And that's a plantation that is located in West Sulawesi in Indonesia. So, when we did this research, we really focused on uncovering which consumer brands were sourcing palm oil from this plantation, because we knew those brands would have a lot of leverage over the plantation grower and the conditions on the ground. And those brands would have a human rights responsibility to use that leverage. So that's why it was important to make those connections to the brands. So for us, the first step in the research process is to try to figure out, which mill is sourcing fruit from the plantation that we're looking at. So, at this stage, PalmWatch can't really make that connection for you. But in the coming months, we are going to have that capability. We're going to start incorporating plantation boundaries into the tool. But for right now, in the current iteration of PalmWatch, you have to make that connection yourself, which I'm sure some of you have done that before, but I just want to sort of go through that very quickly. So with PT Mamwang, we have created a little case study, which you can see here, on how we used corporate filings, satellite imagery, social media posts, and other kind of sources to connect the plantation to a nearby mill that is called PT Latawa. So you can find that case study on our Follow the Money website. We're going to post the link to it in the chat. So I encourage you to check it out. I'm not going to go into detail on how we made that connection, but please, give the case study a look to see how we did it. So once we had the identity of the mill that was sourcing fruit from the plantation that we were looking at, again, it was called PT Latawa, then we can go to PalmWatch, and that's where PalmWatch becomes very powerful. So let's go back to PalmWatch. This is the homepage that you're seeing here. So since I want to search on a mill, what I want to do is I want to go to the mills area. So I click on this mills button, and that takes me to the mills landing page. And there's a lot of information on here, but what I want to do is, since I'm looking at a particular mill, I want to scroll down here and I want to do a search on the mill that I'm looking at. Again, the name is Latawa. So I type it in, I find a hit, and I click on the name of the mill. Now that takes me to the page for this particular mill, Latawa. Now at the top, you can see the total forest loss associated with this mill going back to 2001. So you see that here. We also have information on the size of the mills, what we call the catchment area, and I'm going to explain that a little bit more in a minute, but that's here. And then you also get information on the RSPO status, which is here. And then we also have a variety of deforestation scores associated with this mill. And you can see those three here. So we've got a recent deforestation score, and that is based on the amount of tree cover loss that has happened within the mill's kind of catchment area over the last 2 years. We've got a past deforestation score, which is looking at tree cover loss going back to 2001. So it's about 20 years. And then we've got a future deforestation risk score. And that's calculated using the amount of forest that remains within the catchment area for that mill. And then it also looks at the kind of past behavior of that mill to kind of predict what's the risk of future deforestation associated with that mill. Now the scores are 0 to 5, with 5 being the worst on deforestation. And if you want more information on how we calculated the scores and what they mean, you can go to the About page, or feel free to ask during the Q&A. But that's just an overview of the deforestation scores. Now, if you scroll down, you can see here the map form of the catchment area for the mill. So if I click here, you get these black boundaries. So this is the approximate boundary that PalmWatch has drawn around the mill, in which it thinks the mill is drawing palm fruit from. So all of the deforestation happening within these boundaries is being assigned to this mill. Now, we used a variety of techniques to come up with these boundaries. Really, the starting point was the 50-kilometer radius that the industry uses, and that's based on fruit spoilage. But that's pretty broad, so we wanted to be more precise. So we also looked at the road networks and other sort of probability factors, because we really wanted to limit the overlap between mills, especially in places like Indonesia, where the mills and plantations are extremely dense. And Dylan and Lana, who are the real experts here, can explain in more detail how that all worked if you have questions. And you can also drill down on deforestation information in this part of the map. So if I click on this little box here, I can kind of go back in time and look at the deforestation impact of this particular mill So if I go back to 2021, 2020, all the way back to 2001, I can go, and I'm seeing the deforestation that's happening each year. It's all color coded, and you can see in the little legend here what that all means, but it's really just showing the amount of tree cover loss that's happened year by year. And you can also see the deforestation scores in map form associated with this mill. But what we really want to do for this research project, again, looking at that Mamwang plantation, is we want to see which consumer brands are sourcing palm oil from that mill and our plantation. And so let's scroll down. That's where this box down here on the left becomes really useful. So that tells us all of the consumer brands of the 15 that we have on PalmWatch that are sourcing from this particular mill. And the data goes back to 2017, so you can sort of see throughout time how it works. But what I'm looking at is current links between this plantation and consumer brands. So you can see here, I scroll down, there are quite a number that have supply relationships with this mill in 2021, which is the latest data that we have. And if I want more information on a particular brand, so for instance, Pepsi is sourcing as of 2021, I can click there, and that will take me to the landing page for Pepsi. And we'll talk a little bit more about these brand landing pages in a minute. But for our research exercise with the Mamwang plantation, we'll just want to confirm what PalmWatch is showing, which is that Pepsi has a current supply chain relationship with our plantation and mill. So, from the box, you could see that the PalmWatch is only sourcing the disclosures going back to 2021. So we just want to make sure that the relationship is current. So what we've done is, if there are any disclosures that a brand is making post 2021, we've just thrown a link to that latest disclosure down here at the bottom on the brand landing page. So what I want to do with Pepsi is I just want to click on that, and I just want to make sure that Pepsi has that relationship with the mill that we're looking at as of 2022. So this is the actual Pepsi disclosure. And I can just do a Control F on that, and I will see that Latawa is, in fact, on Pepsi's supply chain list as of 2022. So that shows us that Pepsi is exposed to our mill and our plantation. And I'd want to do that for the other ones that we're seeing here as of 2021. I would want to go to the brand landing pages and just do that corroboration. So that's how you would use PalmWatch to follow the palm oil from a plantation to a brand. But there are lots of other ways to use PalmWatch. So I just wanted to give you a sense of how that might work. So let's go back to the home page. You can also view all of this data by consumer brand, which is sort of how we did it with Pepsi. So if you click on the brands tab, that will take you to the brands landing page. And here you can get an overall picture of the deforestation impact and risk of each brand supply chain. And that's all just kind of right here. It's just a little snapshot. And if you wanted to get more detail on each brand, you can scroll down here and you can click on the brand of your choice. So if we click on Nestle, we go to the Nestle landing page, and we just get more information on its supply chain and the deforestation impact associated with it. There's a lot of data on these brand landing pages, but what's probably most interesting is just the recent deforestation score for all of the mills that Nestle is sourcing from, and that's about 1,500 mills. You also just get a geographic picture of where they're sourcing palm oil from. And if you wanted, you could actually go down to this map here, and you could look in detail at all the mills if you wanted that Nestle is sourcing from, and get a picture of each one. So that's the brands. Let's go back to the home page. There are other ways to view the data. You can look at the corporate subsidiaries that are directly owning and operating the mills, and you would do that by clicking on the Mill Owners tab. But what may be more interesting is to look at the corporate groups that are controlling mills through subsidiaries. So that would be the parent companies that are probably operating multiple mills in various parts of the world. So to do that, you would go to the Mill Groups page, and that would take you to all the corporate groups that are running mills. One kind of parent company that we've looked at quite a bit is called Astra Agrolistare. So I can just do a search on a name, and it pops up here. And if I want to click on that, That takes me to the AAL landing page, and it shows that they control 33 mills. It shows that in one country, that's where their operations are, and it gives some deforestation information associated with their mills. And if I wanted, I could drill down and I could look at the map at those 33 mills and get a better sense of where they are and the deforestation impact in terms of geography. The last kind of way to view all of this data is really to just look at the map. So all of this data is geolocated, and if you just click here, explore the map, you get a big map. And let's say I'm interested in palm oil in West Africa. I can just zoom in, and you see there are a bunch of black pins, and those represent the mills, and of course the catchment boundaries around those. And I can just kind of click through, and if I want to look at each mill, I can do that. So if I click on a mill here, I can just scroll down and there's more data on that mill, and I can actually go to the mill landing page and get more information that way. So that's just kind of a brief overview of how to use PalmWatch. I hope that's helpful. Honestly, I think it's really user-friendly. It's really intuitive to use. So I think the best way is to just hop on the website and just start using it. But we did have a few questions in advance regarding our future plans for PalmWatch. So I just wanted to touch on those before I hand over to Dylan and Lana to talk about a couple of other features of the tool. So just in terms of future plans, in the coming months, we want to add additional data to the platform. So kind of the first thing that we want to do is we want to get the latest mill disclosures from the consumer brands. These are the ones post 2021, which is the latest that we have now. So not all of the brands have made disclosures after 2021, but the ones that have, we'll get those latest disclosures on the tool. So those are all sort of integrated and automated. Another thing that we want to do, and I'm really excited about this, is we want to add plantation boundaries to the tool. And that will sort of allow you to automatically connect plantations to mills and the consumer brands using PalmWatch. So if you just look at this, mill catchment area here, what we do is we would actually put the plantation boundaries, we would draw them in and assign a name to them. So you can actually see which plantations are in those mill boundaries, and that allows you to make that connection through the PalmWatch portal as opposed to doing it sort of outside the portal by hand. So our first step is going to be adding concession boundaries that we have from Greenpeace, and those are in Indonesia, and those are quite extensive. So we'll be working on that probably over the next year. So look out for that. And then the sort of final thing that we want to work on is we want to figure out a portal that allows people like you, people that are working on this issue, people that are supporting communities on the ground, to actually crowdsource human rights impact data onto the tool. So for instance, if there's a local NGO that has evidence of, let's say, land grabs associated with a particular plantation, we want to develop a portal that allows that NGO to actually submit that evidence, and we want to geolocate it onto the map. So it's reflected not just on the mill and plantation level, but also on the supply chain level. So this is kind of a long-term project. It's going to be very experimental, and I think the plan is to start piloting that later this year. And we're also just, I want to say, we're really open to any other ideas that you might have to make PalmWatch better, more useful, more functionality, more data. So if you have ideas, please let us know in the Q&A session at the end, pop it into the chat. You can also send us an email at the address in our About section of PalmWatch, and that's palmwatch@inclusivedevelopment.net, and we can pop that email address into the chat as well. Okay, so I will pass it now to Dylan and Lana to show you a few additional features of PalmWatch. Thanks, everyone.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dustin. So I want to give a brief overview of two additional features on the PalmWatch site. The first is how you can download data if you want to do additional analysis or share that data with other analysts or key community members. And also I want to show a little bit of behind the scenes, a way that we have implemented a content management system, or CMS, to be able to update additional information about brands, about mills, about mill corporate groups, for things that our method might not fully capture or might misestimate, or additional context that's really important to say what's really going on with these groups. So let me go ahead and share my screen. So I'm going to go ahead and start on one of the brand pages, the consumer brands on Unilever. So this is just like the PepsiCo or Nestle page we're looking at. You can scroll down below the data tables and you'll see this kind of about section. So down here, there's a short description as well as links to the disclosure PDFs. You can open these PDFs and download them, like we saw Dustin kind of confirm the use of a certain mill. These links, these are also stable. They're not going anywhere. So sometimes the PDFs on the brand websites might move or the link changes and it's hard to find. These links will always be the same, so you can always come back to these. You can also download the data that we've generated for each consumer brand. So there are 4 ways to download it here. First, the geospatial data. If you want to use a GIS or Geospatial Information Systems program like ArcGIS or QGIS, you can download this GeoJSON file, which is a format that lets you see those mill boundaries and all the data associated with them. If you want to see the loss over time, this kind of line chart here, that data is available for download under the forest loss over time, which downloads as a CSV or comma separated value. You can open that in Excel or Google Sheets or any other spreadsheet program. Lastly, if you want the individual mill records for which mills this company used, you can download the mills used. And similarly, if you want a list of all of the mill owners that were used by this brand, you can download the mill owners used. Again, these last 2, you can open them in any spreadsheet program. So on the About page, we have a little bit of information about these. So if you scroll down to this kind of Q&A or FAQ section, questions and answers, there is an item here called data description/dictionary. This is going to give you a full description of what are all of the columns in the data, what do they mean, and additional information. So if you download the data and want to use it and dig into it, and have some questions about what columns mean, they're described here. Please feel free to send us an email and ask any questions at any time as well. Additionally, here, if you just want to download all of the mills data and all of the deforestation impact metrics, you can download the full mills here under this header that says, where can I download the full data? So lastly, I want to show what the content management looks like. So I'm here kind of in this back system, and we have a couple different ways that we can update data, but we can look at the content here for the Unilever page. So here we have some information about if they have an alternative name. We can upload the disclosures here, update the description, and like Dustin was showing, add some additional information. This additional information could be things like news reports, legal filings, human rights information, things that we can't necessarily always capture with our methodology, but are really important context to show what is going on with this brand, with the mill group, with the mill owner. So every level of data, the way we put it together, has a page like this where we can add additional content. And so this is really important that we can update and modify and annotate to better understand what's really happening. So for instance, we could choose a mill. In this case, I've just chosen a mill here, 3F Oil Palm Agritech. I can take its UML number. This is an identifier that we use with the UML list to kind of identify the names and the information about mills. And in this case, I can go down to mill. I can search for that number, and we now have this page that describes this mill. So now if one of you all, or if we had discovered particular information about this mill that we wanted to add, we can provide some additional context about how this mill is operating, some things about the boundaries that we might want to note, or any other information. So this is a really important feature to be able to have our site be responsive to additional information that folks closer to where this problem is actually happening might know or might have local knowledge that we don't. And also be able to update and be responsive to changes in laws, in legal filings, and so on. So if this looks like something that you would be interested in doing or potentially crowdsourcing some of the information, please don't hesitate to reach out and contact us. We're always interested in getting additional notes or feedback or information about these mills. So with that, I wanted to, there were a couple other questions that were sent along ahead of time. So thank you all for doing that. There's one question about asking for data on Cameroon. Right now, we are using the universal mill list to validate where the mill locations are. And so I need to double check that, but the limitations in the global coverage come from that UML list. And so we want to use that as a source of truth to confirm where the mill locations are, because we can get some conflicting information from the corporate disclosures themselves. So for mills in Cameroon, for example, that UML list is constantly getting updated. And so as soon as that incorporates data from Cameroon, then that coverage will, during our next update, will appear on our site. There's also a question about how do we navigate situations where the experience or the expertise does not match the metrics or the statistics that we found. This is a really important question, and this is exactly why we want to have those mill and brand pages, so there can be that additional context in case that data doesn't capture the reality of the situation. That's a place where we can provide additional context, additional information, and try to give a more holistic picture of what's happening. So thank you very much for that question. It's really, really important. With that, I think that's all I've got. I'll turn over, Lana, if you had any other anything else, but I think that's all from me.
Thanks, Dylan. That was a great overview. I would expand on what you just said by saying, yes, there is the content management system that we just demoed. So if you'd like access to that, please reach out to us. But if you do notice any one-off errors, there's also a feedback form on the website that we can click and go into. I don't know if we could preview that really quickly.
Yes, absolutely. So on every page, there is this little teal blue tab. If you click that, it'll open this menu. You'll need to be signed into a Google account. If you're looking at a particular page and notice a data error, in this case, it's this mill, you can copy that URL so that we know what mill you're looking at or what brand you're looking at. This will help us identify the potential data error. And then you can go through this as a simple form, and you can say kind of what you're seeing, what's wrong, or what you'd like to see, and provide additional information. There's some optional questions at the bottom about what kind of work you do, if you'd like to be connected on the kind of newsletter. But really the most important parts here are providing the link so that we know which page that you're looking at, what kind of feedback you'd like to provide, and then any information here. Yeah.
Yeah, great, thank you. And again, as Dylan and Dustin have both said, this data is continually being updated. We're hoping to do another round of updates for the website over the summer, updating the site with the latest mills from the latest brand disclosures. But would love to hear any other ideas that you have. So please do use those feedback forms or reach out to us. And yeah, looking forward to answering any additional questions.
Thanks so much, Dylan and Lana. That was great. And just to kind of follow up on Cameroon, you know, I'm seeing there are mills mapped in Cameroon on the tool. But if you sort of drill down on those mills, there are no connection to consumer brands. So what that says is the consumer brands themselves, the 15 that we have on PalmWatch, at least according to them, they're not sourcing from mills in Cameroon. So there are obviously other brands or potentially like domestic players that are sourcing from there. So just a little bit more context. Really happy to answer your questions now. We've got a good 25 minutes to do that. Feel free to raise your hand, drop a question in the chat. I think there's also a Q&A. You can drop it there. But yeah, I'd love to hear feedback or questions if you have them. Okay, we have a question here. Is there another way to map reach by country? And this is translated, so it's imperfect, but I mean, I want to look for all companies and mills by country. That's actually, Dylan, is that possible to filter sort of by?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I can give a quick demo of that if y'all would like. So on the top menu here, where you have this top navigation bar, you have these 5 icons. And so you can search, like we showed, you can do this search by brand. And for each of these, you can type in text and then filter for those. So you can filter by brands, by mills, by mill owners, by mill corporate groups, and then by countries. So these are the countries represented in the universal mill list data. And so, yeah, you can choose any of these. And then we could go to Indonesia, for instance. And then it'll show just those mills in Indonesia. In this case, these 1,247 mills. So yes, absolutely, you can filter by country. Right now, we do not have the data downloadable by country, but this is something that has been requested and is on our project slate to be able to make data downloadable at every page. But yes, you can absolutely search by country.
And I think in the meantime, they could download the full data set and also filter in an Excel-like program as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So if you wanted to add multiple filters, you could download all the data for Indonesia, let's say, and then filter by, mill corporate group, mill owner, et cetera, and drill down that way. Thanks for that. We've got another question. Does the data include private and public companies? Yes. And there's sort of multiple layers to that. So the consumer brands that are sourcing the palm oil, those are both public and private. And it's really just based on them disclosing to the public where they get their palm oil from. We don't distinguish between publicly held and privately held companies. And then in terms of the mill owners, that also includes public and private. Generally speaking, the direct subsidiaries that control the mills are going to be privately registered. They're just locally registered subsidiaries that were established only to run maybe 1 or 2 mills. The corporate groups, it's a mixed bag. It's public and private. Some of the big multinational growers in Southeast Asia are private. A lot of them are also public, but we don't distinguish. We just put everything in there. Do you have filter by country and context of Nepal? We have been importing palm oil and processing it as a hub. So we can filter by country. So you could filter by Nepal. But I think maybe what this question is asking is about the importing of palm oil. Is that correct? It looks like Niraj, did you want to just chime in and explain a little bit more, if you don't mind, just on that question?
Yeah, you are on the point about it, Dustin. I was asking about the context of palm oil in regards to our country, Nepal. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, so to the extent that there are mills in Nepal, and I haven't looked, but to the extent that there are, those would be mapped on here. And again, that's within the universal mill list. So it's not every single mill, but it's the big industrial mills. In terms of importing palm oil for processing and for consumer brands, no, we wouldn't track that data here. You'd have to go to other sources to find that. And, if you'd like, please reach out after this webinar and we can talk about that. But that would be outside the scope of what PalmWatch does. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sure. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, and just to follow up on that, currently we don't have, currently the Universal Mill List does not have any mills in Nepal. But like Lana mentioned, we are updating this data over time. So if there are palm oil mills and plantations getting tracked in Nepal, then those will show up here. Yeah, but thank you very much.
I think we might be at the end of the questions, unless anyone wants to chime in, but I think we've covered everything that's come in through the chat. Yeah, we have a really great question that just came in, and I can take a first crack at it. Dylan and Lana, curious to hear what you think as well. So the question is basically, so we've got these sort of catchment areas that we've drawn around each mill, and we're assigning all of the deforestation that happens within those catchment areas to a particular mill. And the question is, what if there's other economic activity that's happening that's not palm oil? Are we incorrectly assigning that deforestation impact to those mills? So for instance, like logging, mining, et cetera. And that's definitely an issue in Indonesia. It's something we've thought about quite a bit. And I think that's where really getting those plantation boundaries is going to be really important. And I mentioned that's kind of the next step, is once we've drawn the plantation boundaries in there, that really shows us what is actually attributable to palm oil activity. So when we do that, we'll be able to sort of disaggregate the things that are not related to palm oil and really drill down on the plantation boundaries. So we're not there yet. I mean, I think we feel relatively comfortable with what we have now. Just from talking to experts, within those catchment boundaries, the vast majority of deforestation is likely to be related to palm oil. But you're right, we can't be precise about it until we have those actual boundaries drawn in, and that is really the next step in the process. But great question. Dylan and Lana, did you have anything to add to that?
Lana, do you want to go for it?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, we can't draw hard conclusions at this point until, as Dustin said, the boundaries are a little bit improved and we have more contextual information. But it could be the first cause of for further investigation. Maybe we want to do a drill down to see where the areas where highest deforestation are, and then do more on the ground work to supplement that.
Yeah, I'd second that. That this can be a really good starting point for identifying potential areas of problematic practices. The other thing I would want to note for the boundaries is a standard practice is taking the point of the mill and just drawing a 50-kilometer radius around it, which is even could capture even more non-mill activity than what we're doing. And so our method here is looking at where that mill could access the road network. And so it tries to be a little bit more specific in the areas assigned to that mill. So this is the next step. Like Lana and Dustin said, getting those plantation boundaries in there is critical to really verifying those locations. And yeah, there likely may be other activity going on. But yeah, this is, we hope, a useful view of where that mill may be able to access.
Yeah, thanks for that. And just to sort of echo what Dylan said, I mean, the industry is using that 50-kilometer radius. So the brands like Nestle, that's how they're looking at their deforestation kind of footprint. And it's very broad, and we're being a little bit more precise and selective even than what they're doing. So we're taking their industry standard and we think improving it and being more precise, but really it's about getting those plantation boundaries in there. Got another question in the chat. Actually, two, it looks like. One, it looks to be in Bahasa, so we'll get that translated. But we've got a question. Is it possible to have the company, brand, or mill's contact information included in the profile for accuracy reasons? I think this is a great idea. This is definitely something that we could easily put in. And that would allow you, if you're doing this research and you've connected a plantation that you're looking at where there have been human rights violations or environmental damage, and you want to contact the brands that are sourcing from that palm oil to try to really put pressure on them to use their leverage as they should. I think having that contact information would be very useful. That's something that we could very easily add, certainly for the brands. And even the corporate groups that are running the mills, that would be possible as well. And that's really who you'd want to contact if you're looking at the sort of mill level So definitely something that we could pretty easily do, I think.
So we had another question in the chat about downloading data by country. I put a note in the chat, but just to clarify the data downloading now, you can download the data by consumer brand, by the overall data, and then filter it down. Those are the two ways right now. We plan to in the future making it to make it easier to download each different filter of the data. But right now the two options are by brand and then the full data set, which is about 2,000 mils. So it's not too big or too hard to work with. But right now those are the main ways to access it.
Thanks, Dylan. Okay, we've got a question that came in Bahasa. We've got the translation here. So in the future, will data on cases or violations by palm oil plantation companies be available? In my opinion, this tool can be a control function for consumer brands who buy problematic palm oil products. As you already know, there are many cases of alleged violations of human rights, especially against indigenous peoples in Indonesia, and this should be a cause of concern for brands. Absolutely agree. And we see that being a really important kind of function of the tool going forward. So as I mentioned, we are going to be piloting a portal that would allow groups that are working directly with communities that are impacted by these plantations to submit data to us, essentially to crowdsource it. And we really want to open it up to anyone who is working with communities, who is gathering evidence of these human rights violations, land grabs, et cetera. And we want you to be able to submit it to the tool. So we're going to develop a way to do that. And really, ultimately, the idea is to connect those impacts to the consumer brands that are really, sourcing the palm oil from those plantations and really have the leverage and the responsibility to use it to try to improve conditions on the ground. So that is the plan. I hope that we can work with all of you to do that because I know a lot of you are you have great data, about these impacts that we really want to feed into the tool. So really excited to develop that and involve all of you in that. Thanks. Great question. Okay, I think we might be at the end of the Q&A, unless there are any last burning questions. Okay. Well, thank you everybody so much for joining. We really appreciate it, especially the people that joined during their evening. Really happy to give you a demo of the tool and really hope to stay in touch with all of you. You've got some great ideas on how we can further develop the tool. I really hope you just start using it. And if you see ways that we can improve it, if you have questions, please feel free to get in touch. And if you have colleagues that are interested in another sort of demo like this, we're happy to set up another webinar for those who couldn't make it. So thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you everyone for attending. Very grateful for your time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.